Have you ever laid in bed at 11 o'clock at night, going through your day, and you're like, why did that feel so uncomfortable? Why did it feel so awkward? Like, who am I? Who am I really? And if I ask you right now, who are you? Could you answer from that truth? Like, do you feel 100% comfortable in the skin, in your skin, in who you are? Grounded in you and who you are. And you might ask, how do you know? How do I know if I'm grounded in my skin? That's what we're going to talk about today. Here's what it was for me. When I was interacting in certain places, work, relationship, there was this noise. And this noise felt like a static. It was taking me from being present because there was this noise, static that was always there, that wasn't allowing me to be present, wasn't allowing me to be aware. Because now that I have the understanding of what that was and what it is now, there is no noise. There's no noise. When I'm in my truth and when I'm I'm grounded in who I am. And I just recently caught this because I was doing something and I could feel that old uncomfortable feeling. And then I could feel like this pressure and I could feel like this in my body, this tenseness. And that was that mask that was trying to come back on. And so if I asked who you are, would you describe you and have a really good understanding of who she is? Or would you describe the mirror, the person you've been told you are? Because you've had those people in your life that always said, oh, Sarah, she's a good little girl. Oh, Margaret, she's a smart one. Right? Because you've had these people say, this is who you are, or maybe that's who you've been told in your career. I grew up most of my life with a mask on. And now I see that's where the noise was. That's where the friction was. That's where the uncomfortable feeling came from. Like before I walked into that big meeting room, I started to feel it. And then once I went over the threshold, I was just like totally uncomfortable. And if a topic was coming up, I was thinking in my mind, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Because I couldn't think what to say when they asked me. So I'd be try to prepare. And it didn't have anything to do with that environment, although I could feel the energy in that environment. I didn't know that's what I was doing. It had to do with I'm here trying to act like the person with the mask on. And that doesn't align with who I really am. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. And I didn't know that at the time. Now I have a different perspective. I know that underneath that mask is a person who's been there the entire time. And it's not someone I had to build or develop. It's a signal that's been transmitting before anyone ever taught me what to do with it. So take a breath and take a breath just to arrive in this moment. Because if you dropped everything else that you had to be for everyone else, what would be left? Take away all the conditioning, strip away all your past, what's left? And what does that feel like? Does it feel like someone's there? Does it feel like emptiness because you've not ever connected with that person before? Because that is the truest thing about you. When you strip everything away and you just come here. because everything else is who you had to be for everybody in your life. So I'm Donna. I'm a witness. And here's what I want you to know. You were never broken. You didn't lose yourself. You just lost your signal. You lost your true signal, the heartbeat of your truth. And what I've found in my own story and working with others is that we can't see the conditioning while we're in it. We can't see we're in the matrix when we're in the matrix, because the conditioning runs automatically. And I've looked back in my life, and I'll tell you the two perspectives. I look back on my life and I saw, why did this take so long? I was just so oblivious. But then I see, because I was in the conditioning. And you can't see the conditioning when you're in the conditioning. And then I went back and looked at it at a different lens, and I saw all these incidences that were there to wake me up and shift my perspective, and how each time I answered and I made a little bit more progress and a little bit more progress. And that's why I'm here today, because I don't want you to look back at all those years and say, why did it take me so long? Because it runs invisibly, it runs unconsciously. And as long as we're in that mode, it just runs. We can't see it. Not until we get out of it, or if something happens, or we get that presence enough to see the mirrors that everybody's being for us. When something happens, there's this glimpse that lets us witness our truth. So the work that I do isn't to fix you. It's to witness you until you remember who you are, until your truth is revealed and your signal is clear. And so today we're going to talk about the actual mechanism, why this happened, why it's still there. And here's the thing that I want you to hear loud and clear, is you didn't choose the mirror you're using right now to decide if you're enough, if you're doing enough, if you're being enough, becoming enough. You didn't choose it. We could argue that your soul did, but we're not going there. In your physical manifestation here, you didn't choose the mirror. So you didn't choose it. As a child, you didn't get to choose your conditioning. You didn't get to choose your family. You didn't get to choose your experiences. You were in an environment and you recorded it. You learned the way every child learns what keeps them safe, through repetition and through consequence. Watching closely what got you love, what got you belonging, what got you safety, what got you met with silence, anger, discipline, love. And in that process, you found this role. Maybe you became the good one, the quiet one, the responsible one, the smart one. And none of these are bad. They're actually brilliant strategies, brilliant strategies. I'm in awe whenever I go back to my own memories and I work with clients at how early a child figures this out. Exactly what it takes to secure love and belonging in an environment they're in. And when they become that completely, because the child's nervous system doesn't have the luxury of asking whether the trade is fair. It's just asking, how do I belong? What gives me love? What keeps me safe? And they're not even asking their question, but intuitively they know, because a child just wants to belong and be loved. And for some of us, that trade was steep, because it meant abandoning entire pieces of who we are, our instincts, our desires, our voice, our truth. Because the version of us that would have kept them, it wasn't the version that got the love, the belonging, the safety. And we can judge ourselves for that. Trust me, I have that too. But it's not a weakness. It's the nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do in an environment where truth was too expensive to keep. Just sit with that for a second. A child can figure out that their truth is too expensive to keep, too risky, and that they can't stay in it and still get what they need to survive. And that is the mirror, built out of what got reflected back consistently enough that you mistook it for who you are. I'm going to say it again. A mirror built out of what got reflected back to you, not out of your truth, not out of your truth. That flatness, that sense that your own life doesn't feel like it belongs to you, that's not a mood. That's what I call the conditioned self. All right? A life that you experience that got conditioned in the very beginning doesn't feel like it is who you are. That is the conditioned self. And here's the part that makes it hard to see from inside. You see, that belief that was created that holds up that conditioned self, it wasn't just sitting there quietly. It builds. The moment it forms, it becomes this lens, and everything gets experienced through it. So if the belief is I had to earn love or my needs are too much, that belief, it doesn't stay a private thought. It becomes the lens the whole of life passes through. When someone's a little short with you, the lens says, see, you're too much. When you're praised for taking care of everyone else, the lens says, see, that's how you do it. That's how you earn it. And when you ask for something that feels like too much, the lens says, see what happens when you ask. See what happens when you ask. And just sit with that. Because you're not imagining the evidence. You have years of it. Real memories, real moments. That lens picked the moments that counted. It let through what confirmed the belief and quietly filtered out what contradicted it. Your reality is curated, and you built that curator a long time ago for reasons that made sense at that time. And here's why it never felt like an even fight, because your conditioned self against the truth, like the truth just didn't have enough. Every time the conditioned self acts inside the belief system and the world responds the way it expects, that becomes a memory, evidence, validation. And it happens constantly. Over years, that's not a handful of memories, that is thousands, if not tens of thousands. You see, the conditioned self has an enormous, well-documented file. Every entry feels true, even when the memory's distorted. Because you can tie it back to a time in history when that happened. And the true self, the part you're getting a glimpse of right now, the part that doesn't feel like the you who shows up on autopilot, it has none of that on file. It has none of that on file. And here's what I want you to hear. Because you were witnessed in your conditioning, validated in your conditioning, it's actually not witnessed, it's validated in your conditioning. You were seen and validated in your conditioning. You've never been witnessed in your truth. You see, witnessing is not the same as validation. That's why I made that change. This was one of the biggest lessons of my life. And the distinction matters more than almost anything else in this work. You see, validation, it agrees with the performance. It agrees with what the other person wants you to be and what they want you to say. You're doing it right. You keep going. I agree with you. And that just stays on the surface with the constructed self, the one built to survive. But witnessing is different. Witnessing is when someone sees past the construction, the conditioning, all the way to the original. And you may have been witnessed in your truth, but because it's something that it can't come back here and land anywhere, because all the conditioning that's covering it up, it didn't resonate with you. It didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel right. You felt like the other person was wrong. Because witnessing in your truth goes to the core of who you are. And then it reflects that back. So when it feels like your true self just can't compete with the self that runs on autopilot, that's actually real, because you have so much information and you're getting so much validation of being this person with the mask on. And that's real. And it's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's because the conditioning has this mountain of evidence built over decades, and the true self has almost nothing because it's never been seen. One has all the validation and the other one has none. And that's why witnessing matters. It's not a nice to have. For the true self, it may be the first evidence it's ever received. And so that's what I want you to know, is that trust me, I do this. We try to determine our truth by what we're getting mirrored back. And if you're not getting your truth mirrored back, you're questioning it. You're like, it doesn't exist. But before we go, I want to bring you through an exercise. And so if you don't have the time right now, mark this time in the video and come back to it. Because it's worth seeing the contrast between the conditioned self and the true self for yourself. But if you have a few minutes, pause here and go get a pen and paper and let's go through it. So step one, I want you to name a problem, something that feels like a problem in your life right now, something you're struggling to handle. Not the biggest thing you're carrying, just something real, something that you have feelings about. Okay. On your right side, take an imaginary piece of white chalk and draw a circle. This circle is someone with no conditioning. We're going to define the circle as no conditioning, not one part of it. They were never taught to shrink, to prove, to please. There's no version of them that gets it wrong. Anything and everything is possible. And when you're ready, step into that circle and just receive from that perspective. No conditioning. Anything is possible. How would they handle that situation? What would they do? What would they say? What would they stop doing? What might they ask? Notice what arises and just hold on to it. Just hold on to it. So go ahead and step out of that circle, and we're just going to, like an eraser, erase that circle. Okay, on your left side, you're going to take that white chalk and draw another circle, another white circle. And this one we're going to define as your current reality, who you're showing up now, where you are now. This is your current reality. When you're ready, I want you to step into that circle. How are you handling this now? How are you actually handling this situation? What's going through your mind? What's the frustration? What are you saying to yourself? What are other people saying to you? Just notice. And not to judge it, it's just data. It's just data, information. And when you're ready, I want you to step outside that circle and look at your current reality. What would someone have to believe about themselves to handle the situation the way that you experienced when you stepped in that current reality? You don't have to get it to be perfect. Just name it, the belief. What would someone have to believe to have that narrative, to have that confusion, to be stuck in that? You see, because when you're inside that lens, you can't see a solution that's different, that's beyond what you already know, because it can only reflect back what you already know. Naming is the first part of the mirror that belief has ever had. So when you said, what do I ever have to believe? Now you have awareness. And that belief's only ever been obeyed. It's never been questioned. Now I want you to ask this question. Does that belief make sense for you now where you are in your life? Because you may have been carrying that belief for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Does that belief still make sense? And see how that belief is clouding and confusing the situation. And it doesn't matter, because the moment you can see it, something clearly, without flinching, without rushing to fix it, something in it starts to loosen. And that's the beginning. That's the whole point of this work. Not to out-argue the evidence, just to see it. Just to see it. So if you did this exercise and found a belief, even a rough version of it, put it in the comments for me. Naming it is the first crack in the frame. Underneath that belief, underneath that situation, underneath everything you named, there's that part from that first circle, the one who answered what's possible, the one who knew exactly what to do where it felt different, when they knew that they couldn't get it wrong. You see, that part's been here all along. That's your signal. And for a second, just go back and feel that freedom, that free of the noise. Just notice it. If you haven't watched the first video in this series, I'm going to link it below. And there's another one coming where we left off, right? The work that you've already done hasn't been able to close the gap, and what actually does. So thank you for being with me. I'm Donna. I'm a witness. I'll see you in the next one. And the only thing today I want you to do is have a beautiful, extraordinary day. Thank you.